There comes a moment in your evolution when the old current of your energy can no longer sustain itself. It doesn't happen with thunder or applause. It happens quietly, almost imperceptibly, when something inside you stops agreeing with the noise. The mind tries to keep the same rhythm, the same thoughts, the same fears, but the energy underneath has already begun to turn. You feel it before you understand it. A subtle dissonance between who you were and who you are becoming. This is the threshold moment, the unseen line between unconscious repetition and conscious alignment. You cannot plan it. You cannot schedule it. It arrives when your nervous system grows tired of holding tension for an identity that no longer fits. The ego resists, labeling this inner movement as confusion or fatigue, but it is not collapse. It is recalibration. The energy that once obeyed survival patterns begins to listen to truth. It begins to reorient itself toward coherence, toward wholeness. You start noticing that what used to pull you no longer does. The validation you once sought now feels heavy. The conversations that once consumed you dissolve into silence. There's no drama in this turning, just the quiet authority of the soul reclaiming its direction. You begin to sense that something deeper than the mind is leading, and your only task is to stop interfering. The nervous system, wired for safety, trembles at this surrender. It has learned to equate stillness with danger, silence with loss of control. But the truth is the opposite. In stillness, your energy becomes precise. In surrender, your frequency begins to refine itself. Every breath now becomes a recalibration, a soft unwinding of every false signal you've ever carried. Energy shifts begin when you stop managing yourself into alignment and start allowing yourself into it. This allowance is not passive. It is the highest form of intelligence. It means trusting that the same life force that orchestrates galaxies can handle the architecture of your becoming. You no longer chase outcomes. You listen for resonance. You no longer push against reality. You let it teach you. When you reach this threshold, the world may look the same, but it no longer feels the same. You begin perceiving movement beneath appearances, a vibration that speaks in sensations rather than words. It's the feeling of truth arriving before form does. You realize that awakening is not an event. It's a gradual synchronization between your energy and your awareness. And once it begins, there's no going back. The mind may try, but the current has already shifted. You're no longer ruled by reaction. You're being tuned by something higher, something vast, intelligent, and kind. You're crossing from force into flow, from noise into signal, from identity into essence. This is the beginning of your real alignment. The moment your energy stops chasing the world and begins remembering its source. Change is not chaos. Only appears chaotic to a mind addicted to control. Beneath every transformation, whether internal or external, there is an exact order, a law of alignment that governs the movement of energy. Nothing in your experience shifts by accident. Every sensation, emotion, and realization is responding to an unseen calibration within your nervous system. When your body becomes ready to release tension, your life reorganizes around that readiness. Energy obeys coherence. It moves toward resonance, not resistance. When your nervous system finds stability, your frequency can rise without distortion. But when the system is overcharged, when stress, fear, or unprocessed emotion flood it, the shift must wait. It's not punishment, it's protection. The intelligence of your being will not allow a new frequency to anchor in a body that is still at war with itself. This is the law beneath change. You do not evolve through force. You evolve through readiness. The timing of transformation is not random, it's rhythmic. Like the heartbeat or the tides, your evolution moves in waves of contraction and release. Each contraction brings awareness to what's unhealed. Each release expands your capacity to hold light. When you understand this, you stop fighting the process. You begin to trust the intervals, the pauses, the plateaus, as essential parts of your awakening. The nervous system acts as both gatekeeper and translator. It determines how much frequency your body can hold without collapsing. When you rest, when you breathe deeply, when you stop running from discomfort, the body decodes energy more efficiently. It opens, it stabilizes, it becomes a vessel for consciousness rather than a battleground for the ego. This is why true spiritual growth always mirrors physiological regulation. Peace is not found in the mind's ideas about stillness. It is found in the body's ability to remain soft while awareness expands. Every time you resist change, you are protecting an old pattern of safety. Every time you allow it, you are affirming the intelligence of life itself. The law beneath change is not mechanical. It's relational. Energy responds to your relationship with it. When you treat your emotions as signals instead of enemies, their density softens. When you honor your limits rather than shame them, your system trusts you enough to evolve. The universe is not testing you. It is attuning you. Each moment of discomfort is a recalibration, a clearing of interference so your natural frequency can emerge. You begin to see that growth doesn't mean becoming more. It means shedding what obscures your signal. The mind calls this loss. The soul knows it as liberation. When you finally understand that every change follows a law of readiness, fear dissolves. You stop demanding speed from life and start recognizing its precision. The unfolding becomes sacred. The waiting becomes intelligent. The tension becomes communication. Nothing is wasted. Everything is orchestration. And in that realization, your energy begins to move with the rhythm of truth. Steady, certain, inevitable. Every shift begins with friction. Before energy rises, it meets the gravity of what has been. The human mind calls this friction a problem. The nervous system calls it familiar. Resistance is not proof that you're failing. It's the echo of an identity trying to survive the light. The body tightens, the mind clings, and emotions replay old memories of safety. You mistake that contraction for control. You think you're holding your life together, when in truth, you're holding your past in place. Resistance is ancient. It lives in muscle memory and inherited emotion. It whispers that change is dangerous because once it was. Long before your awareness expanded, the nervous system learned that predictability meant survival. So when new energy arrives, the body resists, not out of defiance, but out of loyalty to what once protected it. This is the pattern of resistance, an unconscious devotion to suffering that once served as safety. The mind justifies this devotion through story. It creates reasons to delay peace. I need to fix myself first. I'll open my heart when they understand me. I can rest once I've healed. But all of this is illusion. These thoughts are the nervous system's language of hesitation. They are the energetic brakes that keep you circling old frequencies. Each justification is a boundary drawn by fear, not wisdom. The nervous system interprets unfamiliar energy as threat, so when joy tries to enter, it triggers alarm. When stillness arrives, it feels like emptiness. The ego rushes to fill the space with noise, analysis, and tasks. It cannot bear the quiet where identity begins to dissolve. But this is the paradox of transformation. The very silence the ego fears is where energy reorganizes itself. The stillness you avoid is the portal to coherence. Resistance always disguises itself as protection. It promises stability, but delivers stagnation. It tells you that tension keeps you safe, but it only keeps you small. You hold your breath when life asks you to exhale. You overthink when awareness asks you to listen. You contract around pain, believing it will hurt less. Yet contraction amplifies suffering. Every time you resist, you reinforce the illusion of separation between yourself and the flow that sustains you. The only way out of resistance is observation without judgment. The moment you see resistance as movement, not obstruction, it begins to soften. Energy cannot remain rigid under awareness. Light reveals density, and in that revelation, density dissolves. The nervous system starts to remember its original design, to regulate through presence, not through defense. What was once your cage becomes your compass. The patterns you resisted become the very signs of awakening. Resistance is not the enemy of change. It is the tension that births it. When you stop mistaking resistance for failure, it transforms from wall to doorway. The moment you stop fighting it, you realize it was never blocking you. It was teaching you where you still cling to what no longer serves. Awareness changes everything, not by effort, but by observation. Force creates friction. Awareness creates flow. When you stop trying to fix your energy and simply begin to witness it, the transformation begins. What was once chaos begins to organize itself under the quiet gaze of consciousness. The nervous system, long conditioned to react, begins to learn a new language, the language of neutrality. The mind believes it must act to heal, that it must chase, purge, or control. But awareness does not need to do anything. Awareness is not another task. It is the field in which all tasks dissolve. When you look at your emotion without trying to escape it, you change its structure. Energy cannot maintain disorder under conscious observation. The very act of seeing without judgment begins to harmonize what was once fragmented. This is the great reframe. Nothing needs to be fixed, only seen clearly. What you resist stays charged. What you observe begins to integrate. Awareness is not passive. It is the most powerful current in existence. It doesn't fight the shadow, it illuminates it. It doesn't reject the noise. It reveals the silence beneath it. It transforms by inclusion, not exclusion. When awareness deepens, perception shifts from story to sensation. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you start to feel, what is this energy communicating through me? The question changes from mental interpretation to embodied listening. You begin to sense that every discomfort carries information, every trigger, a message. Awareness decodes these signals not by analysis, but by presence. In presence, the nervous system stops translating emotion as threat and begins reading it as movement. Awareness is coherence. It brings scattered fragments of your psyche into alignment. Thoughts that once spun in contradiction now flow in harmony. Emotions that once felt unbearable begin to soften. The mind, once the loudest instrument, takes its rightful place in the orchestra of consciousness. You stop being the conductor and become the space where music arises. In this state, healing stops being dramatic. It becomes quiet, rhythmic, almost invisible. The nervous system unwinds without performance. The heart opens without reason. The old compulsion to work on yourself fades because you realize there's no self to work on. Only awareness learning to remember itself through form. When you understand that awareness, not effort, is the source of change, a profound relaxation enters your system. You stop pushing against your own becoming. You stop measuring progress. You begin to live in rhythm with what is. Every sensation, thought, and breath becomes part of the unfolding intelligence that was always guiding you. The energy shift you seek is not something you achieve. It's something you notice. When you stop trying to move energy and start being aware of energy, movement happens on its own. Awareness doesn't push, it invites. It doesn't demand, it allows. And in that allowing, coherence is born. The storm quiets, not because you silenced it, but because you finally listened. Your body is not a barrier to awakening, it is the doorway. The nervous system is the bridge between energy and experience, the translator between vibration and emotion. Every spiritual insight, every energetic shift must pass through it before it becomes reality. The body is not behind your evolution, it is leading it. When your nervous system is dysregulated, energy cannot flow clearly. But when it is balanced, awareness becomes embodied truth. Your energy field and your biology are not separate. They are two expressions of the same intelligence. The electrical signals that fire through your nerves are the same light that pulses through the cosmos. The body interprets energy through sensation, heat, pressure, tingling, or calm. These are not random feelings. They are language. They are your consciousness speaking in the vocabulary of physiology. To ignore the body is to silence the instrument through which awareness plays its music. Modern life has taught you to override this intelligence, to live from the neck up, to analyze rather than sense. The result is fragmentation, a nervous system trapped in hypervigilance, while the soul longs for stillness. Your body becomes both the alarm and the answer. It tightens when energy is trapped and relaxes when energy integrates. This is not philosophy, it's physics in flesh. Regulation is not self-help, it's spiritual alignment. When you begin to regulate your nervous system, you teach your energy how to move again. Breath becomes the recalibration tool of consciousness. Each exhale signals safety. Each inhale invites expansion. In this rhythm, the body remembers that it is not separate from life, but part of its flow. Stillness is no longer something you force. It becomes a biological permission. The parasympathetic system, the body's natural calm, becomes the vessel for divine awareness. Spirituality without nervous system awareness can become escapism. It floats above the body, chasing light while ignoring the circuitry that grounds it. But true awakening happens in the tissues, not just the thoughts. When your energy aligns with your physiology, peace is not imagined, it is felt. This is why grounding, breath work, and mindful movement are sacred technologies. They tune the instrument so the symphony of awareness can play through it without distortion. Your emotions are electrical responses, not enemies. They show where current is flowing freely and where it meets resistance. Anger is voltage without grounding. Anxiety is electricity seeking direction. Calm is coherence between signal and system. When you learn to read these sensations with compassion, you stop judging them and start listening to them. Every pulse, every shiver, every pause is data from consciousness itself. When the nervous system becomes steady, awareness deepens effortlessly. Energy flows without interference. The soul and the body begin to speak the same language. This is the gateway to transformation. The moment you realize that enlightenment is not escape from the human experience, but full participation in it. The body is not a cage, it is a cathedral, and through its nerves, divine intelligence breathes itself into form. There is no separation between your thoughts, your emotions, and the energy that moves through existence. Everything operates within one unified field, a sea of consciousness that shapes and reshapes itself according to frequency. This field does not judge, it simply mirrors. Whatever signal you emit through your thoughts, emotions, and nervous system is reflected back to you as reality. The field is precise, responsive, immediate. It doesn't give you what you want. It gives you what you are vibrating. Your mind is not creating the world on its own. It is tuning into the collective frequency, selecting experiences that match your internal resonance. Just as a radio receives only the station it's tuned to, your perception filters reality through your vibrational state. Thought sends the signal, emotion amplifies it, and awareness refines it. Every word, every sensation, every breath is a transmission to the field. You are not living in the universe. You are living through it. Science has begun to glimpse what mystics have always known. The nervous system is an electrical network that both sends and receives energy. Quantum physics calls it entanglement. Spirituality calls it unity. The names differ, but the principle remains. Everything communicates with everything. When your frequency becomes coherent, when your thoughts, emotions, and body align, life reorganizes itself around that coherence. Synchronicities multiply. Obstacles dissolve. You're not bending reality. You are harmonizing with it. This field is intelligent. It records every vibration, not as punishment, but as memory. Fear compresses the signal. Love expands it. Shame distorts it. Gratitude refines it. When you hold a frequency of trust, your environment begins to mirror that trust in ways too subtle for logic, but too consistent to deny. Energy does not lie. It only reflects. The field is a perfect mirror of consciousness in motion. When you understand this, responsibility transforms into empowerment. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstance and start recognizing yourself as a participant in creation. The nervous system becomes your tuning fork. The heart becomes your transmitter. The mind becomes your instrument of focus. Together, they form a coherent circuit through which divine intelligence flows unhindered. Awareness then stops chasing outcomes. It starts curating. Frequency. You do not change your reality by forcing events to unfold differently. You change it by broadcasting a new signal through the way you feel, think, and embody presence. When you raise your vibration, reality reorganizes itself naturally. This is not magic, it is resonance. Energy seeks equilibrium. When your inner world is ordered, the external follows. The field responds not to words, but to frequency. You can speak of peace while vibrating in fear, and the field will respond to the fear. You can say nothing yet radiate love, and the field will move mountains on your behalf. The universe is fluent in vibration, not language. Awareness of this truth frees you from manipulation, because you realize that nothing is outside of you. Everything is within the same living field of consciousness. Beneath every bright intention lives a frequency the mind avoids, a hidden echo of unprocessed energy that distorts your signal without your awareness. This is the shadow frequency. It is not darkness as evil, it is darkness as density, the residue of emotion that never had the chance to be fully felt. Fear, shame, guilt, resentment, these are not moral failures. They are energy states that have collapsed inward, seeking light through acknowledgement. When they remain unseen, they shape perception. When you face them, they become teachers. The ego builds its identity around avoiding this frequency. It hides the discomfort beneath performance, productivity, or positivity. It calls the shadow weakness, but suppression only amplifies distortion. What is buried begins to vibrate beneath consciousness, altering how you experience reality. The nervous system stays locked in defense, interpreting safety as danger, and the energy field echoes that confusion outward. The result is fragmentation, a life that mirrors inner dissonance. To see the shadow frequency requires radical neutrality. You cannot heal what you are judging. You cannot transmute what you are afraid to touch. Awareness must descend into the body and meet what has been exiled. This is not indulgence, it is integration. The shadow is not your enemy. It is the lost part of you still trying to find its way home. Every distortion is a doorway. Every fear is a message. Every contraction is a call for inclusion. When you begin to recognize shadow frequencies, you notice their subtle signatures. The sudden irritation when someone mirrors your own disowned emotion. The tension that arises when peace feels unfamiliar. The guilt that surfaces when you finally rest. These are not coincidences. They are communications. The field of consciousness is showing you the vibrations that are ready to be released. Life reflects the inner waveform, not to punish you, but to illuminate what remains fragmented. The nervous system reacts to the shadow as if it were danger, because once it was. In the past, expressing anger, sadness, or authenticity may have led to rejection or pain. So the system learned to compress those energies to store them in the body as protection. But now, that compression prevents coherence. The shadow frequency drains energy until it is seen with compassion. The moment awareness holds it without resistance, its polarity shifts. It becomes light. Transmutation begins the instant you stop running. When you let the nervous system feel the sensations it once avoided, the energy trapped within them starts to move. The contraction unravels, the emotion dissolves, and in its place, clarity arises. The shadow becomes source material for wisdom. Fear becomes discernment. Shame becomes humility. Anger becomes power purified of ego. The shadow frequency is not the opposite of light. It is the unpolished truth of it. Integration is not victory over darkness. It is the realization that darkness was never separate from the divine current. Once you see this, every emotion becomes sacred. Every wound becomes signal. Every shadow becomes the very bridge to consciousness itself. Release is not something you do. It is something that happens when you stop holding on. It is the natural conclusion of awareness meeting resistance without judgment. The moment you stop fighting your emotion, the energy trapped within it begins to dissolve. What you call letting go is not an act of will. It is an act of allowance. Energy longs to move. Its default state is flow. It is only the mind that interrupts it, labeling certain experiences as wrong, painful, or unwanted. But when observation becomes unconditional, movement returns. Breath is the bridge of release. Each exhale invites the nervous system to unclench. Each inhale reminds the body it is safe to open. You do not need to force your way out of tension. You need to breathe your way through it. The body knows how to release if you let it speak. Trembling, tears, warmth, stillness, these are all expressions of energy exiting density. They are not breakdowns. They are breakthroughs in motion. The nervous system is unlearning fear, one breath at a time. True release is not a mental process. You cannot think your way into it because thought is part of what resists. The mind believes release means loss, but the soul knows it as freedom. What falls away is not who you are, but who you pretended to be to survive. When you let awareness touch those illusions, they unravel quietly, like smoke dissolving into sky. The relief you feel afterwards is not new energy entering. It is old energy leaving. Observation is alchemy. When you witness an emotion with full presence, the energy reorganizes itself. Shame becomes softness. Fear becomes clarity. Anger becomes direction. This is not suppression or denial. It is transmutation. The frequency changes form because awareness changes its structure. Just as water evaporates under heat, dense emotion rises under the warmth of consciousness. Surrender is not weakness. It is the highest act of intelligence. It means trusting that your system knows how to find harmony better than your mind knows how to fix itself. When you release the need to control, your energy reclaims its rhythm. You realize that healing was never about effort. It was about permission. Permission to feel. Permission to soften. Permission to be without condition. As you release, your perception begins to clear. The world appears lighter, not because it changed, but because the filter through which you see it did. Resistance bends reality. Release restores truth. Suddenly, time slows. Sound sharpens. Presence deepens. You are no longer moving through life. You are flowing with it. Every moment becomes a mirror of coherence. Every breath a quiet affirmation that the universe was never against you. It was only waiting for you to stop gripping the edges and finally trust the current. When energy aligns with presence, life stops feeling like a battle and begins to feel like breathing. The effort dissolves. The striving fades. You realize that harmony was never something to chase. It was something to allow. The embodiment of the shift is not a moment of achievement. It is the return to natural order. Energy moves freely, thoughts quiet naturally, and the nervous system hums in coherence with awareness. You no longer live from reaction. You live from response. In embodiment, everything becomes simpler. Your choices arise from clarity, not compulsion. Relationships shift from projection to resonance. You speak less, but your words carry weight. You move slower, but everything unfolds faster. This paradox is the hallmark of alignment. Less force, more flow. You stop trying to control outcomes because you begin to sense that outcomes are already orchestrated by a higher rhythm. Life no longer feels like something happening to you. It feels like something moving through you. Synchronicities increase not because reality has changed, but because you've entered its current. The universe no longer has to shout to get your attention. Subtlety becomes your new language. You feel guided by intuition so natural it doesn't feel mystical. It feels obvious. What once required rituals or reminders now happens automatically. Gratitude arises without prompting. Presence becomes your baseline frequency. The nervous system, once caught in loops of vigilance, now rests in safety. The body becomes a sanctuary, not a battlefield. Emotion flows like weather, arriving, passing, cleansing. You stop naming experiences as good or bad. You start experiencing them as movement. This is emotional maturity, the quiet power that comes from understanding that all sensations are messengers of life. Coherence doesn't mean constant calm. It means unwavering trust in the intelligence within change. When the shift becomes embodied, your energy field stabilizes. You attract without needing to pursue. You heal without needing to analyze. You create without needing to control. It's not magic. It's alignment. The energy that once leaked into overthinking now fuels intuition. The time that once disappeared into worry now expands into still presence. You begin to notice that reality mirrors your state instantly. The outer follows the inner, effortlessly. This is the stage where spirituality becomes physiology, truth integrated into tissue. The nervous system no longer interprets stillness as threat, but as home. Your mind becomes spacious enough to hold paradoxes without collapsing into fear. You recognize that peace is not the absence of movement. It is movement in perfect rhythm. Even when challenges arise, they feel different, less personal, more purposeful. Embodiment is not escape from humanity. It is full participation in it. You walk through the world with open eyes and an open heart, no longer trying to ascend above it, but to express through it. The divine and the ordinary merge into one field of experience. In this state, presence itself becomes power, not loud, not forceful, but unwavering, an energy that moves mountains quietly, simply by existing. All movement leads back to stillness. Every lesson, every shift, every awakening brings you here, to the quiet center that never moved. You begin to understand that the energy you were trying to manage, heal, or awaken was never outside of you. It was always arising from the same still source that breathes life into everything. The end of transformation is not more activity, it is recognition. Recognition that stillness was never absence. It was the deepest form of presence. Stillness is not the silence of emptiness, it is the silence of understanding. It is the nervous system resting in safety so complete that even thought slows to match its rhythm. It is the body remembering that it is home, not a project. It is energy flowing so coherently that movement feels like calm, and calm feels like creation. In stillness, awareness stops seeking. It realizes there was nowhere to go. Everything you long for was contained within the space you once tried to escape. This is not the end of the journey. It is the unveiling of what was always constant beneath it. When you touch this stillness, life continues as before, but your relationship with it changes. Challenges arise, but they no longer shake your foundation. You feel emotion, but it no longer defines you. You engage with the world, but you no longer lose yourself in it. You respond from stillness instead of reacting from survival. That difference is everything. The nervous system mirrors this truth beautifully. When regulated, it doesn't eliminate sensation. It allows sensation to move without hijacking awareness. It becomes the instrument of peace, tuned to the vibration of presence. You don't have to escape the body to be spiritual. You have to inhabit it completely. Stillness is not withdrawal. It is full embodiment without resistance. It is the felt knowing that nothing needs to be fixed for life to be whole. In this stillness, your perception widens. Time slows. Space expands. You begin to see the subtle intelligence orchestrating everything. The coincidences, the delays, the detours, all of them reveal themselves as precision. You are no longer waiting for life to begin. You are witnessing it unfold in perfect rhythm. This awareness doesn't make you passive. It makes you peaceful. You participate in creation without grasping for control. The return to stillness is not a retreat from motion. It is the realization that motion arises from it. Every thought, every heartbeat, every breeze across your skin emanates from this unmoving source. When you rest there, fear loses meaning. The future loses pressure. The past loses weight. What remains is clarity. Unshakable, effortless, alive. You have not arrived somewhere new. You have remembered what never left. The true shift was never about becoming someone else. It was about ceasing to forget who you already are. The stillness you feel now is not the end of energy. It is its highest form, the quiet hum beneath all existence, the pulse of consciousness itself. You are not separate from it. You are it. And now, you remember.